Thank you so much. I'm going to walk around and hold the microphone, and when, after about 15 minutes, it starts ending up down here, just wave at me and I'll bring it back up again. I want to say thank you to Chris and to everyone who is involved in helping me be here. I love to do this. This is what I like to do, and I just really appreciate the opportunity to come and talk. I do want to check how long we're expecting to go. I can make it shorter or longer, so I don't know what the standard, perhaps double check what the standard format is.
About an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay, she said that. Are you okay with that? Yeah? Okay, we'll go, so I'll try and get it under an hour, and then we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A as well. Do ask questions as I'm going through. If it's a quick one, I'll answer it. If it's a bigger one, we'll park it until the end. Before I go any further, I should explain what's going on with my voice. It's called a British accent. A lot of people had it where I was growing up. There is a cure, which is you emigrate, but I took the cure at age 33, by which point I'm afraid it's chronic. So. Outside London is the answer. My wife's American, and yes, 2 kids who are now 18 and 13. We've talked about these things, some of the things I do. This is my family. This is me trying to fix the accent at the Fleet Centre. It failed. My daughter is really into basketball and all sorts of things to do with that. My son is very stylish, but does put up with us. And my wife is great and fabulous part of everything. Let's get started. You might know or have heard the term greenhouse gases. I'm going to be asking you a few questions as we go through this. They're not very hard, and I'm going to help you with them. And here's the first one. You understand gardening. What is the earliest month you think I can pick lettuces in Wellesley? Pick. June? May, June, and then I heard March. How come March? Sorry? Ah, right. Exactly. April is actually my answer, but because of a greenhouse. So a greenhouse lets in heat and light from the sun and doesn't let it out again. So it ends up warmer inside than it is outside. Mine doesn't look like that. It looks like this. They're cold frames, but it does still produce lettuces. And it's great because the summer's just longer. I get vegetables earlier, I get them later. The cold frames are going on soon. And here's the next one. Why shouldn't you leave your dog in a car on a hot sunny day with the windows rolled up? It will die, it'll get too hot. It's like a greenhouse, is exactly it. So this is an experiment they did, a car parked in the sunshine. It started off at 80 degrees inside, 80 degrees outside, and over the course of an hour, the temperature goes up to 123 degrees inside. And it's the same thing. The heat and the light can get in, they can't get out. Third question of 4. Bit more technical. These are the planets in order from the sun outwards. And you can see that we're the third one. Which one do you think is hottest? This one is a trick question. I heard Venus. Now, Venus isn't the closest. Mercury is the closest, so it's getting the most heat from the sun. And like I said, it's actually it's a little bit of a trick question because Venus is the right answer. Venus is hotter because it's like a greenhouse. it has an atmosphere made almost entirely out of a gas called carbon dioxide. And this gas acts like a greenhouse. And so Venus is actually hotter than Mercury, even though it's further away. The same thing happens here. So this gas, carbon dioxide, it traps energy from the sun. Heat and light come in from the sun, they bounce around, and the CO2, which is the chemical formula, carbon, oxygen times 2, dioxide, 2 oxygens, that's all the chemistry I'm going to do, is like a greenhouse. It's like the glass on a greenhouse. And that's all, actually, sorry, one further point is that's all fine, and in fact it's a good thing, because without that effect, without the greenhouse effect, where we are right now would be a mile deep in ice. We would be frozen solid. So it keeps us warm, I mean, particularly at night, when there's no sun. The fact that it's still above negative 40 is because of the greenhouse effect. So that's all good until we start messing with it. And that's what we've been doing, is changing the amount of carbon dioxide, changing the amount of this greenhouse gas which is in the atmosphere. So the fourth question is, does anyone know where this human-caused carbon dioxide, this human-caused greenhouse gases are coming from? Aerosols, did I hear? Cows, definitely. Actually, not aerosols. That's something different. Cars, yes. Cars are burning gasoline. Gasoline is or oil, is generally called, is a fossil fuel. It's dug out of the ground. There are two more big fossil fuels that we use. Coal, we make electricity with, and we sometimes heat our house with the third one, which is gas, I heard someone say. So coal, oil, and gas. And they are literally fossil fuels. You dig up coal, you find fossils in it. And there are more. So those are the big ones. There are others. If we burn things, landfills actually cause a lot, whereas composting does not. Road transport, and cement manufacture and fertilizer are actually big, and cows, industrial agriculture. They're actually producing a lot of greenhouse gases at both ends, if I can put it that way. Different greenhouse gas, 80 times as bad, and yes, so all of those added together starts to have an effect. Now, it's difficult to imagine what this invisible gas looks like and what it's doing and how much we're producing. So I like this, and it's a way of visualizing it. New York City itself produces 2 tons of carbon dioxide every second. And 1 ton is like a balloon 33 feet across. So in this room, you could probably get 2 tons of carbon dioxide. That's 1 second for New York City, maybe 3. Now, if they all emerged in one place, this is what it might look like. So here are the big blue bubbles of carbon dioxide. Each one is a ton. We're getting 2 come out every second. We're just going to watch this just for 1 minute so we can see how much we get after a minute. This is a magical New York City where every car is a taxi. Before Uber. So that was a minute. This is an hour's worth of emissions. This is one day. And this is 1 year. So if you consider that that's one city, by far from the biggest in the US and by far in the world, and that was 1 year, and think that it's not just the cities and we're doing that every year, you realize how this can add up. Also, when you remember that or realize that space is, satellites and so forth, is closer to us right now than Cape Cod. You may remember this guy who jumped out of a balloon, this is a few years ago, at, quote, the edge of space. He was 24 miles up. That's half the distance to Cape Cod from here. The atmosphere isn't that thick. So it really is possible for us to change what's in it. And when we do change it, we get the subject you've probably heard of. I called it climate change. We can call it global warming. I'm going to use both. And here's how much heat that it traps. All of that extra carbon dioxide is trapping extra heat from the sun, which is the same as setting off 4 atomic bombs every second. So that's a second, that's a second, that's a second, that's a second. That's the amount of extra heat that we're trapping. And what would we expect would happen? Well, as the carbon dioxide goes up, which is the blue line, we'd expect the temperature to go up, and that's the red line, and that's definitely what we're seeing. That goes up to 2000. Let's have a look at the hottest years we've ever recorded. Do you notice anything about those dates? I'm sorry? Yeah, they're all 2000s. They're recent. Actually, all but one of them is in the 2000s. And these are in order from the hottest at the top. So the very hottest year ever recorded was 2016, which beat out the previous record, which was 2015, which beat out the previous record, which was 2014. So we are seeing an effect. And you can think about it either as where we are is getting warmer, or it's the same as if I moved south. So, as I move south, I'm getting closer to the equator, as long as I'm in the northern hemisphere. And we can think about how far would I have to move to get that hot? Well, if we take the state of Massachusetts and where it started off, depending on whether we just keep burning fossil fuels like it doesn't matter, and that's the red path, or we really start doing something about it, and that's the yellow path, then it's like the state of Massachusetts moving south. Now, I've been to South Carolina. It's a lovely place. I'm sure I'll go back, but I do object to somebody taking me and my entire state and putting it in South Carolina against my will. One of the problems that goes with that is the South Carolinians are now in Mexico, the Mexicans are in the equator, and the people that were on the equator have now left the planet. And they're not going to be happy with that. I mean, try building a wall against hundreds of millions of people who don't have anywhere to live anymore. So it becomes a serious issue, and a bunch of other things go with that. And I'm going to transition to one other part of the subject, and just as I do that, I'll do a little sanity check. This is usually the point where people are going, I came out for a nice sit and a talk. I was going to have a sandwich, maybe talk to my friends, it would be kind of interesting, and I haven't felt so bad for weeks. I wish this guy would stop. I am going to stop, and before I do, it will get better. There are good messages. We do have to tiptoe through the facts. And here's a fact well worth sharing. It's 5 words, and it's your other piece of science. It's warm air holds more water. If I have a shower and I don't switch on the fan, even though my wife has told me to every single time for years, when I get out, what do I find on the mirror? Steam. It came from the shower, that's where the water was, and it's now on the mirror because the mirror's colder, so it condensed. If I have a cold shower, I don't get the steam on the mirror. The cold air does not carry cold water. It's warm air that carries water. And we know exactly how much. And this is why you get what can seem impossible. You get these two sort of opposite effects from climate change. You get more drought and you get more floods, because where this air is, it can take up more water. It does. So it gets too dry there. And then it moves somewhere else and it comes down and it's more than it would have been before. So you get floods. And the globe drew the link in our snowstorm that literally just finished having my roof repaired from. In 2015, how global warming can worsen snowfalls because there's more moisture up there to come down. Hurricane Sandy, and I'll get to some more obvious ones in a minute, caused 11 to 12 feet of storm surge at New York. But for 45 minutes and a slight change of direction, it would have been here. And that's what 12 feet of sea level rise or storm surge does to the Back Bay and to Harvard and the Rose Kennedy Greenway. There's a philosopher I sometimes refer to. He's not always very legible. I'll see if we can hear him properly. He has an observation about this. See if I can get him to talk. Oh.
It's a problem for future Homer.
It's like, that sounds like a problem for future Homer. It's like, it's not. It's here and now. And people that understand that it's here and now include the US military, those well-known tree huggers, who are on record as saying climate change is a threat multiplier. It is a catalyst for conflict. It will enable terrorist activity, and it is having an impact on national security. Not if it's true, if it starts to happen at some point in the 2030s, it is. So Darfur, there was a drought before that fell apart. Syria, there was a drought before that fell apart. There are many places to look for evidence of this. So, just before we get to the solution, we have to deal with the fact that we've known this for a while and we haven't fixed it yet. And part of the reason is that we haven't wanted to. There are people who've been denying it, as well as those that simply don't know. And there's a good reason, I think, behind it. A lot of it is, the reassuring lie is, much happier than the inconvenient truth. I wished it wasn't true when I first started learning about it. So people are very prone to believe the things we all are, that we want to believe. And we've had a lot of help in not understanding climate change. literally hundreds of millions of dollars have been spent to help us not understand climate change, or the people around us to not understand climate change, from fossil fuel companies. And we have the records. You might think that you couldn't do that. It doesn't matter how much money you have. You couldn't confuse the general public, at least not for very long. But if you think of an industry in the 50s and 60s that spent a lot of money trying to confuse people so that they could continue to kill their customers. Smoking. And does smoking cause cancer? We were treated to things like this. That was normal. That was Time magazine. More doctors smoke Camels, and it's true. Most popular cigarette, therefore, more doctors smoke Camels, more veterinarians smoke Camels, more anybody smoke Camels. But the implication is, how can it be a problem? And this one, which I love.
Cigarette, doctor. Thanks, doctor.
Isn't that great? And one of them's got them, has literally got the microscope. The other one's got the tie tucked in to his shirt. It's the middle of the night. They're best buddies. They're doctors, both of them doctor, and they're smoking. So that's how it's done. And then complete lack of shame helps as well. How many people know this photograph? No? These are the 5 chief executives of the 5, as was, major tobacco companies going to Congress and raising their right hand and swearing to tell the truth, and then lying to us all about what they knew and when they knew it about the link between smoking and cancer. So it's not, this happens, unfortunately. And it's happened again. We have the letters now from ExxonMobil research into climate models in 1982, where they talk about clear scientific consensus, unanimous agreement, it'll be catastrophic. We need a major reduction in fossil fuel combustion. That was actually Exxon. They hadn't merged with Mobil yet, I don't think. Mobil Oil to all senior managers, cannot be denied. 1995, so 22 years ago. More, there's loads. So they knew and they denied and they spent hundreds of millions of dollars, just like tobacco did. And their other tactic is to dismiss and say, well, maybe plants will like it, or maybe we will adapt to this, as the chief executive of ExxonMobil said. And I'll just point out, Exxon seems to have ended up with all the bad rap and the bad image of Exxon Valdez and all the rest of it, which is why they brand all of their gas stations Mobil. But it's the same company, so remember to boycott both. And this is where I get angry, because he is asking me for his short-sighted, and as a business consultant, I think wrong, self-interest, asking me to adapt to drought in Indiana, wildfires in Colorado. Those are all houses burned to the ground. This is what Andrew did to Vermont. Sandy at Breezy Point in New York, and of course, what we're watching unfold right now. We're supposed to adapt to it. We're supposed to adapt to an industry that turns what's on the left into what's on the right. It's dangerous to be in the industry. It's dangerous to use the products. These are oil trains and gas lines. It's dirty, and we end up in places in the world we probably wouldn't be, doing things we probably wouldn't be doing. because they want us to adapt. And this seems to be the argument, that yes, the planet got destroyed, but for a beautiful moment in time, we created a lot of value for shareholders. So, we're getting towards the better part. Quick summary before we go there. How long have we known? Well, since the late 1700s, we started putting it together. Really, it was 100 years ago, a bit more, that this guy, clearly the party animal of the time, he's just got fun written all over him, don't you think? He did the first calculations of, well, so what if we burned all of this coal and oil? Didn't have so much gas then. And basically, he got it right. The calculation is not that hard. More than 100 years ago, worked out how global warming would happen and basically got it right. And since then, we've been filling in the details, including front page of the New York Times in 1988. And it's something that is understood by every national science academy on Earth. So these are all of the countries that have a national science academy, and all of these national science academies have been very clear that global warming is happening, we're doing it, and it's a bad thing. There is no scientific debate. And again, a little personal on this part for a moment. I took the training to initially give these talks in 2012. In 2013, I was diagnosed with a neurological wasting disease that, if it carried on, I would be in a wheelchair breathing through a straw or eating through a straw, and they can treat it. Ta-da! So I'm fine. It's a very, very rare disease, literally 1 in a million. Chronic immune demyelinating polyradicular neuropathy, for anybody that's interested. And what people typically do in my situation is raise awareness, because people don't get diagnosed early enough and there's issues. 1 year later, in 2014, I got throat cancer, and they cured that. And that was Dana-Farber. And what people typically do in my situation after that is they raise money. And I'm not doing either of those things. I'm focusing on this, because this is actually more important. And here's to me. I think we can walk and chew gum. Please do all of those other things as well. To me, this is why I focus on this, is it's one strike and you're out. We only get one chance to fix this, because if it goes too far, it becomes irreversible. We can't let it go really bad and say, okay, let's fix it. The planet just doesn't respond like that. Things kick in that mean we simply can't walk it back again. We get the one chance, and it's now. And, and we don't want to be in the situation where, we should have swung. And if anyone can get me a photograph of A-Rod missing like that, then I would gladly replace that in the presentation. So here we are. What do we do? Solutions. There's one solution to pollution that's been offered by Saturday Night Live. And just before I show this, I do want to make clear that no stuffed animals were harmed in the making of this advertisement, of this video. I do have a dog. I love him very much. It is Saturday Night Live. The barbecue is over.
With those hot leftover briquettes, you can't just leave them.
Oh, I caused it. I meant to turn it off. I have to go back.
The barbecue is over. But what do you do with those hot leftover briquettes? You can't just leave them. And pouring water on them would make a big mess. Isn't this the perfect time for Yardaphone? Yardaphone, the convenient backyard appliance that lets you With Yard there's no fuss, no money. You barely knock, load, and log. And your fire break is nearly one full block. With Yard it's staying off. Deal for getting rid of dog garbage. Cooking grease. Old tires. Disposable diapers. Even car batteries. In fact, Yard gets rid of just about anything. And best of all, you even have the launching power to send old, worn-out appliances like air conditioners out of sight and out of mind. So why drag it to the dump when you can Yard can even help with those special problems.
Daddy, is Tiffany excited? Shouldn't we marry him?
We're just helping him get to heaven, honey.
No stuff in there.
Where she goes, nobody knows.
That's why I don't bring my dog to presentations. The last line is nighttime launching recommended for septic tank refuse. So we can't Yardapult it, but we do have other solutions. We have solar energy. This is solar energy from the 1700s, 1800s, 1900s, and now if we look more recently than that, and take China as an example, they had a goal, which they set back in 1996, to have 500, whatever it is in solar power by the year 2020. I never go into the science. I can do the science if you want to. I just find it easier to say whatever's. They're megawatts. So that was how much they thought they were going to get. They got there 11 years early, and then things started going a little bit crazy. I have to readjust the scale because that's what happened next, and their current goal is literally off the charts. It's 150,000 megawatts. So from 500 to 150,000, that's a big miss, and in the right direction. Here's a solar power plant in the US. This single plant has approximately the power that all of China was supposed to have in solar by 2020. And it's been the same story here. That's the US growth in solar energy. And locally as well, Massachusetts, we had a goal of 250 megawatts by 2017. We got there 4 years early. Since when does a government get anywhere 4 years early? But we did. So now we've got another target. We did the same thing in Wellesley with an incentive program that we copied from other towns. So you can see the year we introduced it. So I'd encourage that. Here's wind power in the US. Again, this is also up to last year. Again, just upwards to the right. Also in Massachusetts, there's quite a lot of wind. Cape wind isn't happening, but there's a much bigger wind farm is going to be happening the other side of the islands. So Cape Wind was between the islands and Cape Cod. There's a much bigger area with much larger turbines, which are now available, which is going to be done further out. And all of this change is an opportunity. If you are employed or know somebody that's employed or know somebody that would like to be employed, then I suggest they get into energy, because we're going to move from the old grid where we make it at one end, central generating station, and we send it out to consumers at the other end. We're going to change all of that into a smart grid where this isn't actually me, but because I don't have these things, all of these things, but my solar panels on my roof are charging my car, which is how I'm going to get to work. And then when I get back from work, maybe the energy in my car is being used to run my neighbor's air conditioning, and The town is generating energy from solar. There are bits and bytes and electrons flowing in all different directions from the individual user all the way up to, and we still have central generating plants. So the whole thing changes, and it all has to be smart as well. So, how do I know that I want to sell my electricity out of my car rather than save it for tomorrow? So I think if you want to stay busy for a long time, then energy's the place to be. Businesses understand the opportunity. I'm not going to go into all of these details, but if you just see some of the companies that are making major commitments. And the headlines around energy. We beat in the US more green power installations than fossil fuel installations last year. All fossil fuel vehicles will vanish in 8 years in a twin death spiral. Because as soon as it becomes cheaper to run an electric car and own an electric car, then why would anybody buy a gas car? And then suddenly the whole thing starts flipping. And the same reason, if it's cheaper to put on a solar roof than it is to put on a roof, why would anybody have a regular roof? And so suddenly the whole system starts flipping. So I think this is where we really end up on this one, is yes, the planet was saved, and that's how we made a lot of money for shareholders. It's really where the opportunity is going forwards and not propping up these 300-year-old industries that are killing us. All of this has been preamble. All of this that I've said so far is only because of what I'm going to say next. What I say next is the most important part, the only important part. What can we do? Because if nobody does anything, nothing's going to change. And why should we be any different from anyone else when it comes to doing something about this? In fact, I'd argue in a well-placed suburb of a well-placed town in a well-placed state in a very well-placed country, kind of if we can't do it, who can? So let's have a think. And the first thing is, it doesn't matter where you are today, it just matters where you're headed. I'm the president of Sustainable Wellesley, and I've had comments like, oh, I can't invite you to my house, it's not green. It's like I've got this judgment hat on, wrong, bad, plastic bottle. Somebody just the other day wanted to stop and talk to me in their car, and they drove up in the car and they stopped and they turned the engine off like the second they stopped. And I thought, I bet you never do that. But they're thinking that I'm judging them or that there's this purity test. There isn't. It doesn't matter where you are. It just matters what's your next step. And I take motivation from this guy. Aged 14 in Malawi, no electricity, built a wind turbine and brought electricity first to his house and then to his village for the very first time. He's now completed his 4-year degree at Tufts. I think it was Tufts. And I think if he can do that, I can do something. One of the things I do is these talks, and I've broken down what I think is possible into 5 things, and I'm going to ask you to pick one. I'm not going to ask you to say what it is out loud. I have done, but I'm not. But please do pick one, and I think that there's something in here for everyone. I really do. You can do one of these. And I'm going to go through each one. So learn. Hopefully some of this has been a learning experience. There's more. On the handouts I gave you, there are links to, or not links, I guess, but where to find the additional information that I like. So find out more is a good thing. Anyone can do that. I can't improve on reduce, reuse, recycle. And the most important of those is the first one, reduce. If you're not creating, if you're not creating stuff in the first place, you don't have to reuse it, you don't have to recycle it. Basically, don't buy plastic crap from China to give to kids who are going to play with it for 20 minutes and then forget about it. Sorry, yes, question.
Repurpose is another one.
Repurpose, yes. Yes, exactly. So reuse, repurpose, just look at these things and think, why should they? You can't throw anything away. There is no place called away. Away is a piece of ground in New York, and they're going to throw it on the ground in New York. It's called a landfill. So don't create that stuff if you don't need it, and then once you've got it, use it up, and then use it for something else, and then recycle it. So, and part of this I do want to come back to is eating meat. I do eat meat. If we could all, but not as much, and if we could all stop eating meat, it would have the same effect as if we all stopped driving cars. It's true. It really is a big deal. Those cows fart a lot. Speak up. Be heard. You're now very well informed on global warming. Correct the myths. And there are two things that have been shown through research to help people change their minds. We're all crap at changing our minds. But two things have been shown to work with climate change. One is all scientists, all national academies of science. That is capable of changing people's minds. The other one is, do you remember tobacco? You're going to get fooled again. That's the other thing that has been shown to change people's minds, because they already understand that story. Doesn't matter what they think about climate change, they know what the tobacco companies did. And so you're already there with them. You've already got half of the story told. So every national science body on earth, cigarette doctor. And join the dots. Hurricanes, thank God, finally, the dots are getting linked this time. Droughts, heat waves, etc. And you don't have to solve the world all at once. Don't go crazy. That can easily be me. There's somebody wrong on the internet. So speak up, speak out to representatives. Let them know what you think. Eventually, they know that they have to get in front of the people and go where the people are going. Write letters. I have been published in the Globe, and even the ones that I send that don't get in, they help somebody else's letter get published. This is a lot of fun. It's a big ask, but it's a lot of fun, is going to a march. This was 2,000 people outside the White House in 2011, 4,000 in 2012. This is when I first showed up, 40,000 in 2013, and in New York, 400,000 in 2014. Not the largest march the US has ever seen, but it's up there. And it's a great time. It really is. You're with a lot of people who feel the same way, and you're all doing the most important thing that you could possibly be doing that day, and worldwide. And I was talking to a couple of 350.org members here. They're the people that organized it, and they're one of the groups that I recommend in this last step. If you can't do any of the others, and you haven't picked one yet, pick this one. And that's just join one of these groups. So I've got 350.org, who are the Let's March group. There's Citizens Climate Lobby, who have the best policy solution, I think. And then I got a little confused about Reading versus Wakefield, and I put Reading in here, but local Wakefield group. I think I heard a rumor that Sustainable Wakefield is starting immediately after this meeting. Their inaugural meeting. Come meet down the front. As soon as there are 3 of you, you now have sustainable Wakefield. That's how it gets started. So I'm going to skip that one. And then I'm going to sneak in a few more. Book me. I'll go anywhere from 5 minutes to please get out of here. Help me. I have a startup which engages college students in action on climate change. We run competitions on college campuses. We've done it at Wellesley, Babson, Harvard, and Middlebury, and we're now adding Brandeis, North Carolina State, Clemson, Howard, and a few others. So if you have links with colleges or you have students in college that are in green groups, let me know. And then finally, please, I think you also got a feedback form when you came in. Tell me how I can improve this. My final message is this one. The world does not care what you intend. The world only moves for you when you act. And that's my request. Big or small, doesn't matter where you are, but see if you can find the place to take the next step. And that's the end of my talk, and I'll very happily answer any questions that you have. Thank you.